Amy Wallace had first-hand experience of Castaneda's charms.
He said, it's very important that you do what the Nawal, I am the Nawal, I am the representative of that which is infinite, tells you to do. And Carlos, he wanted us to have sex in my childhood bedroom in order to break the spell of all the old energy.
One woman in particular held a special place in Castaneda's group. She was known as Nuri Alexander, or the Blue Scout.
The Blue Scout. She was the most important being on this planet besides Carlos. She was the one who would take us all to infinity. What she really was Patty Parton, a 19-year-old waitress he had made a pass at somewhere in Southern California and had been completely brainwashed ever since.
The same Patty Parton, whose bones were discovered in Death Valley in 2003. Castaneda had taken the bizarre step of adopting Patty Parton as his daughter in the 1990s.
He was also sexually active with her, which made him adopting her as his daughter take on a whole strange atmosphere.
You know what he once said to me? You have the same vagina as my daughter. That's why I love it so much.
Shocked by what they had discovered about Castaneda, Greg and Gabby continued to raid his trash. Their next discovery would finally shatter all illusions about their guru's immortality.
We found insulin syringes in the trash, and it indicated that Carlos was diabetic.
We found this piece of paper that said hepatitis renal dysfunction, ?
These are prescriptions for pain medication. Obviously he was in pain, and this just confirmed that.
All these indications in the trash gave us a good overview of his physical condition, which was deteriorating very quickly at that point.
Greg and Gabby's surveillance footage showed an increasingly ill man. However, his family were denied access to him.
I walked up to those women, those weird, tall, big women that look like men. They're strange. And I said, do you know who I am? And they said, yes, we do. You're Margaret. And I said, I want to see Carlos. And they said, well, I'm sorry, but you can't see him. And I said, you bet he's going to see me. I'm going to stand here and I'm not leaving until I see him. And I talked to him. And finally, he came over to me and I was so happy to see him. And I said, Carlos, I bought 2 books and I want you to sign them. And he said, oh, Miss Runyon, he said, my hands are too tired. He said, I can't write at all. He stood there and looked at me for a long time. And as he walked away, he threw me kisses and walked backwards. That's the last time I ever saw him.
The last time that I actually saw him alive, he had me write down my phone number and give it to him, and he put it in his shirt pocket. When the witches got in the van with him, I saw the driver of the van reach across into my dad's shirt pocket, pull it out, and wad it up and throw it out the window. That's the last time I ever saw my father alive.
When we went back the following weekend, the house was empty. We strongly suspected that he had died because the 5 women were gone First, of course, we thought they might come back. But then, the weeks would go by and they would not return, which gave us the indication that they were really gone and Carlos was really dead, and then it came out in the papers.
Castaneda's death certificate revealed the immortal shaman had died of liver cancer, a very human disease. This revelation was too much for those closest to him to handle. The repercussions of years of deceit were about to become clear. Following Castaneda's death, 5 of the women closest to him disappeared from LA. It seemed that 4 of them had left town together, while Patty Partin had set off on her own.
I am firmly convinced that the other women committed suicide because after he died, they were like chickens with their heads cut off. Taisha Abelard got drunk and told me she was going to kill herself. Others talked about guns. I think the others shot themselves, and I think they did it in a place where no one could find them because they were very clever.
You have to remember, these were women who believed that Carlos was going to take them with him. And then they discovered that he couldn't even take himself. I'm sure it was a crushing blow. The reality that Carlos was an ordinary man. And they were ordinary people.
Patty Partin's remains were found in Death Valley 5 years after her disappearance.
I know how Patty Partin died because Carlos told me that he told her, if you want to go to infinity and you can't make it without me, drive your little car as fast as you can into the desert. The pull, as is written about in Carlos' books, will come and take her to him, and she will ascend. He was burned in the Culver City crematorium. 2 weeks later or so, Patty Partin drove her car into Death Valley. She probably got out and wandered around, and she probably passed out from the extraordinary heat or was attacked by an animal. And she died wanting to go to infinity to be with her lover and her father. Only bones were left.
The official cause of Partin's death and the whereabouts of the 4 other women remains a mystery.
In a way, I see Castaneda's story started in the desert, meeting Don Juan in the desert. And with Nuri, it ended in the desert.
The final horrific conclusion to Castaneda's fraudulent anthropological work was a fierce human tragedy.
Of the 6 women that were the very closest to the epicenter of Carlos, 5 are dead.
Is a very strange, private person who lives his whole life as a game with other people. Other people get hurt by the game because he doesn't deal with them honestly.
No one could have predicted that what started as a simple anthropology thesis could have such far-reaching and devastating consequences. Castaneda's anthropological fraud brought chaos to those who believed in him and damage to the culture he claimed to revere.
I think now I feel sad about it. When I was younger, I felt angry about it. I think I feel sad because there are so many centuries of misunderstanding between Europeans and native peoples, and Castaneda didn't do anything to make that better. He only made it worse.
The Food Critic and the Feast of Dog Meat, next on BBC4. Cooking in the Danger Zone heads to Korea.
He wanted us to have sex in my childhood bedroom in order to break the spell of all the old energy.
One woman in particular held a special place in 2003. Castaneda had taken the bizarre step of adopting Patty Partin as his daughter in the 1990s.
He was also sexually active with her, which made him adopting her as his daughter take on a whole strange atmosphere.
Amy Wallace had first-hand experience of Castaneda's charms.
He said, it's very important that you do what the Nawal, I am the Nawal, I am the representative of that which is infinite, tells you to do. And Carlos made a pass at somewhere in Southern California and had been completely brainwashed ever since.
The same Patty Partin, whose bones were discovered in Death Valley in 2008's group. She was known as Nuri Alexander, or the Blue Scout.
The Blue Scout. She was the most important being on this planet besides Carlos. She was the one who would take us all to infinity. What she really was Patty Partin, a 19-year-old waitress he had